Loneliness is one of the hardest emotions a person can experience. It can feel like silence is swallowing you whole, like nobody understands your pain, and like the world has forgotten your existence. But what if your loneliness is not punishment? What if it has purpose? Many of the strongest, wisest, and most successful people walk through seasons of isolation before discovering their true identity. Being alone is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it is the place where transformation begins. Loneliness has a strange way of stripping everything down to the truth. When people are constantly surrounded by noise, conversations, entertainment, and social approval, it becomes easy to lose touch with who they really are. Many individuals spend years performing versions of themselves just to fit into certain groups, gain acceptance, or avoid rejection. They smile when they are hurting, agree when they actually disagree, pretend to be confident while secretly battling fear and insecurity. But loneliness changes that. It removes distractions and forces a person to sit face to face with themselves. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. Silence exposes thoughts that are usually hidden beneath busy schedules and endless scrolling. Suddenly, there is no crowd to impress, no one to validate your decisions, and no external noise to drown out your inner voice. In those quiet moments, the real person underneath begins to emerge. That is why loneliness, although painful, can become one of the most powerful seasons of self-discovery. Many people fear being alone because they are afraid of what they might uncover about themselves. Some realize they have been living according to other people's expectations for years. Others discover wounds they never healed from childhood, rejection, betrayal, or failure. Loneliness shines a light on insecurities that were once buried deep inside. It reveals fears, weaknesses, and emotional scars that can no longer be ignored. While this process is difficult, it is also necessary because healing cannot begin until truth is acknowledged. When you are alone, begin to notice what truly matters to you. Without outside influence controlling your decisions, your genuine passions and desires become clearer. You start asking important questions. What actually makes me happy? What kind of life do I want? What dreams have I abandoned because of fear or criticism? These are questions many people never ask themselves because they stay constantly distracted. Loneliness creates the space for reflection, and reflection often leads to clarity. This period also reveals your emotional dependencies. Some people realize they depended too heavily on relationships, attention, or social media to feel valuable. They tied their worth to how others treated them. If they received praise, they felt important. If they were ignored, they felt invisible. Loneliness exposes this unhealthy cycle and teaches an important lesson. Value cannot depend on constant validation from other people. Real confidence begins when you learn to appreciate yourself even when nobody is applauding you. There is also something powerful about learning who you are without an audience. In public, many people shape their personality around what others expect from them. They become different versions of themselves depending on the environment they are in. But loneliness removes the performance. It reveals your authentic character, teaches you what kind of person you are when nobody is watching. That level of self-awareness can completely transform a life because once you truly understand yourself, you can begin making choices that align with your real identity instead of living according to pressure or fear. Trust us. Some of the greatest personal breakthroughs happen during lonely seasons because solitude encourages deeper thinking. People often discover strengths they never knew they had. They learn how resilient they are emotionally and mentally. They begin understanding their habits, thought patterns, triggers, and emotional needs. Instead of running from themselves, they slowly become more comfortable with their own company. That comfort is powerful because a person who understands themselves deeply cannot be easily controlled by the opinions of others. Loneliness can also expose hidden potential. When external distractions fade away, energy can finally be directed toward growth, creativity, and purpose. Many people discover talents, goals, and passions during isolated seasons because they finally have the mental space to focus inward. What once felt like emptiness can slowly become a period of rebuilding and transformation. Although loneliness may feel like abandonment, it can actually be an invitation to reconnect with yourself on a deeper level. It teaches lessons that crowds often cannot teach. It reveals truths that distractions usually hide. In the silence, people often discover not only who they are, but also who they are capable of becoming. Isolation has a way of testing the human spirit, unlike anything else. When life becomes quiet and support feels distant, people are forced into a battle that cannot be seen from the outside. It is easy to appear strong when surrounded by encouragement, attention, and comfort, but true strength is often built in moments where nobody is there to rescue you emotionally. Loneliness becomes the training ground where resilience is developed, patience is strengthened, and inner power is quietly formed. Most people do not realize how dependent they are on external support until they are left alone with their struggles. Some rely on constant communication to feel secure. Others need approval from friends, relationships, or social circles to maintain confidence. But isolation removes those emotional crutches. Suddenly, there are fewer distractions, fewer comforting voices, and fewer escapes from reality. At first, this can feel overwhelming. The silence feels heavier, the nights feel longer, and even simple challenges seem harder to carry. Yet within that struggle, something important begins to happen. Loneliness forces people to discover strength they never knew existed inside them. When there is nobody constantly reassuring you, you learn how to encourage yourself. When there is nobody available to solve your problems, begin learning how to think independently. When life becomes difficult and there is no applause for your efforts, you develop discipline instead of relying on motivation alone. These lessons are painful, but they create emotional maturity that cannot be gained any other way. Some of the strongest individuals in the world were shaped during seasons where they felt abandoned, rejected, or isolated. Those moments taught them endurance. Pain has a way of revealing what a person is truly made of. It shows whether someone will collapse under pressure or continue moving forward despite uncertainty. Loneliness develops the ability to survive emotionally even when circumstances feel heavy. That kind of strength becomes valuable later in life because challenges are unavoidable. People who have already survived lonely seasons often handle future difficulties with greater wisdom and stability. Isolation also teaches emotional control. In social environments, people can easily distract themselves from uncomfortable emotions through entertainment, relationships, or constant activity. But loneliness removes many of those distractions, forcing individuals to confront emotions directly. At first, anger, sadness, fear, and insecurity may rise to the surface. However, over time, people begin learning how to process those emotions instead of escaping from them. They become more emotionally aware and less controlled by temporary feelings. This process builds mental toughness. A person who learns how to remain calm during loneliness becomes stronger in stressful situations later in life. They stop panicking every time circumstances become difficult because they already understand that pain is temporary. They know how to sit with discomfort without letting it destroy them. That ability creates stability, maturity, and confidence that cannot be faked. Loneliness also teaches self-reliance. While healthy support systems are important, there is danger in becoming emotionally dependent on others for every source of peace and happiness. Isolation teaches people how to stand on their own feet emotionally. They begin understanding that while companionship is valuable, their survival does not depend entirely on the presence of others. This realization creates independence and personal strength. Another powerful lesson loneliness teaches is perseverance without recognition. In public, achievements are often celebrated, but lonely seasons usually happen in silence. Nobody sees the internal battles, the tears, or the moments where someone chooses to keep going despite emotional exhaustion. Yet those hidden victories matter deeply. Waking up every day and continuing forward during painful periods develops character. Teaches persistence without needing constant validation. People who survive lonely seasons often become more compassionate as well. Struggle creates empathy. When someone has experienced emotional isolation themselves, they become more understanding toward the pain of others. They recognize silent battles that many people overlook. This emotional depth allows them to connect with people more genuinely and offer encouragement from a place of real understanding rather than empty words. Loneliness can feel like weakness while you are living through it, but in reality, it is often shaping inner strength in ways that comfort never could. Comfort keeps people relaxed, but struggle forces growth. Isolation teaches survival, patience, discipline, emotional control, and resilience. Those qualities become part of a person's character long after the lonely season ends. The truth is that strength is rarely built during easy moments. It is built during nights of uncertainty, seasons of silence, and moments where giving up feels tempting. Loneliness may feel painful now, but it may also be preparing you to become emotionally stronger than you ever imagined possible. Sometimes loneliness is not simply the result of bad luck or unfortunate circumstances. Sometimes it is life pulling you away from places, people, and habits that were quietly damaging your growth. What feels like rejection may actually be redirection. Many people only understand this truth after looking back on painful seasons they once questioned. At the time, the isolation felt cruel, confusing, and unfair, but later they realized it protected them from becoming trapped in environments that would have limited their future. Human beings naturally fear separation. Losing relationships, drifting apart from friends, or feeling disconnected from familiar environments can create deep emotional pain. People often assume that every ending is a tragedy, but not every disconnection is destruction. Some connections end because they are no longer healthy for your emotional, mental, or spiritual well-being. The problem is that while comfort makes people feel secure, it can also keep them stuck in places they were never meant to remain. Loneliness often begins when certain people slowly disappear from your life. Sometimes relationships change unexpectedly. Conversations become shorter, invitations become fewer, and emotional distance grows wider. In those moments, it is easy to blame yourself and believe you are unwanted. But not everyone who leaves your life is meant to stay forever. Some people are only part of one chapter, not the entire story. Holding on to relationships that no longer align with your growth can prevent you from becoming the person you are meant to become. There are moments when life separates you from toxic environments for your own protection. Some people are surrounded by negativity without even realizing it. They stay connected to individuals who constantly drain their energy, discourage their dreams, manipulate their emotions, or normalize destructive behavior. Because these situations become familiar, they stop recognizing how harmful they truly are. Loneliness can interrupt that cycle by creating distance between you and influences that were weakening your confidence and peace. At first, this separation feels painful because humans naturally crave connection. Even unhealthy relationships can feel comforting simply because they are familiar. People often stay in damaging friendships, relationships, or social circles because they fear being alone more than they fear being unhappy. But loneliness can become the space where clarity finally develops. Once the noise and pressure from others fade away, begin seeing situations more honestly. You recognize who genuinely cared about your well-being and who only benefited from your presence. This season of isolation can also redirect your priorities. Many people spend years chasing acceptance, popularity, or approval while neglecting their personal growth and purpose. They become so focused on fitting in that they lose sight of their own identity. Loneliness disrupts that pattern. It forces you to stop looking outward for validation and start looking inward for direction. Without constant social distractions, you begin asking deeper questions about your future, your goals, and the life you truly want to create. Sometimes loneliness is necessary because transformation requires separation. Growth rarely happens while everything stays comfortable and familiar. New perspectives are often born in quiet seasons where people are removed from constant influence. It becomes easier to hear your own thoughts when outside opinions are no longer controlling your decisions. This can lead to powerful personal breakthroughs because you begin making choices based on purpose instead of pressure. Many successful people experienced periods where they felt isolated before discovering their calling. During those lonely seasons, they developed discipline, gained clarity, and focused on rebuilding themselves. If they had remained constantly surrounded by distractions, they might never have discovered their true potential. Isolation gave them room to grow into a stronger version of themselves. Loneliness can also expose areas of life that require healing. Sometimes people stay busy and socially connected to avoid confronting emotional pain. Constant activity becomes an escape from unresolved wounds, fears, or insecurities. But when loneliness slows life down, those hidden struggles often rise to the surface. While uncomfortable, this process creates an opportunity for healing. Instead of running from pain, you finally begin understanding it. That awareness can become the first step toward emotional freedom and personal growth. There is also a deeper lesson hidden inside lonely seasons. Not everyone can go where you are going. Some people only fit the version of you that existed before growth began. As you evolve, your mindset changes, your standards rise, and your vision becomes clearer. This naturally creates distance between you and people who no longer align with your direction. While painful, this separation often makes space for healthier relationships and opportunities to enter your life later. What feels like abandonment today may actually be preparation for something greater tomorrow. Life sometimes removes distractions, unhealthy attachments, and limiting environments before opening new doors. In the middle of loneliness, it is difficult to see the purpose behind the pain, but separation often creates the freedom necessary for transformation. The silence may not be empty at all. It may simply be the season where your life is being redirected towards something better than you imagined. Loneliness can feel empty at first, but hidden inside that emptiness is often the beginning of creativity, vision, and personal discovery. When life becomes quieter and distractions fade away, the mind begins to work differently. People who are constantly surrounded by noise rarely have enough space to think deeply. Endless conversations, entertainment, social media, and daily routines consume mental energy, leaving little room for reflection or imagination. But isolation creates silence, and silence can awaken ideas that would have otherwise remained buried. Throughout history, many of the world's greatest thinkers, artists, inventors, writers, and leaders created their most meaningful work during periods of solitude. Creativity often grows strongest when a person steps away from constant distraction and spends time alone with their thoughts. Loneliness may feel uncomfortable, but it can also become the environment where vision is developed and hidden potential begins to surface. When people are constantly busy trying to keep up with others, they rarely stop to ask themselves what they truly want out of life. Their decisions become influenced by trends, expectations, and outside opinions. But lonely seasons interrupt that pattern. Isolation slows everything down and creates space for self-reflection. During that quiet time, people begin noticing dreams they ignored, passions they neglected, and ideas they never had the courage to explore before. Many people discover talents during lonely seasons because they finally have time to focus inward instead of outward. Some begin writing because they need a way to express emotions they cannot explain aloud. Others turn toward music, painting, business ideas, studying, fitness, or personal growth. What initially felt like emptiness slowly becomes a period of exploration and creativity. Pain often pushes people to create because creation becomes a way to process emotions, find meaning, and regain purpose. Loneliness can sharpen vision because solitude removes many of the voices that once caused confusion. In crowded environments, people are constantly influenced by other opinions and expectations. They hear endless advice about what they should do, who they should become, and how they should live. Over time, it becomes difficult to separate personal desires from external pressure. But in isolation, those outside voices grow quieter. For the first time, people begin hearing their own thoughts more clearly. This clarity can completely change a person's direction in life. Many individuals realize they were pursuing goals that did not truly fulfill them. Others discover dreams they abandoned because of fear or criticism. Lonely seasons often become moments where purpose starts revealing itself. Without distractions consuming attention, the mind gains room to imagine a different future. There is also something powerful about the connection between pain and creativity. Emotional struggle often produces deeper thinking and stronger emotional expression. Some of the most moving books, songs, speeches, and works of art were created by people who understood loneliness deeply. Their isolation allowed them to explore emotions with honesty and depth, giving their work meaning that connected with others around the world. Loneliness can also increase focus. Social environments sometimes pull attention in too many directions, making it difficult to commit fully to goals. Isolation removes many interruptions, creating an opportunity for discipline and productivity. This is why many people accomplish personal breakthroughs during lonely periods. They begin reading more, learning new skills, building businesses, improving their health, or working toward dreams they once postponed. What seemed like isolation becomes preparation. Some of the greatest visions are born in silence, because silence forces deeper thought. When people stop constantly reacting to the world around them, they begin observing life differently. They notice patterns, ideas, and opportunities that were previously hidden beneath distraction. Solitude gives the mind room to wander creatively instead of constantly surviving mentally. Loneliness also teaches people how to create happiness internally rather than depending entirely on outside stimulation. Many individuals spend years relying on constant entertainment or social activity to avoid boredom and emotional discomfort. But isolation challenges them to find fulfillment through growth, creativity, and purpose instead. Over time, they realize that meaningful creation often brings deeper satisfaction than temporary distractions ever could. This season may also reveal strengths you never knew you possessed. Many people discover their voice, intelligence, leadership ability, or creative gifts only after being removed from environments that constantly distracted or limited them. Isolation becomes the space where hidden abilities rise to the surface. Without comparison and outside pressure controlling every decision, people often gain the confidence to explore who they really are and what they are capable of building. Although loneliness feels painful, it can also become one of the most productive and transformative seasons of life. The silence that once felt unbearable may eventually become the place where ideas are born, goals become clear, and purpose begins to take shape. Creativity thrives when the mind has room to breathe, and vision grows stronger when distractions disappear. Sometimes the very season that feels empty is actually preparing you to create something meaningful, powerful, and life-changing. Loneliness changes the way people see relationships. When someone spends time feeling emotionally disconnected or abandoned, they begin to understand the true difference between being surrounded by people and being genuinely valued. Many individuals confuse attention with connection. They believe having many friends, followers, or conversations means they are deeply loved. But loneliness often reveals that not every relationship carries real meaning. A person can stand in the middle of a crowded room and still feel completely alone. This happens because human connection is not measured by numbers. It is measured by sincerity, trust, understanding, and emotional presence. Some relationships are built only on convenience, entertainment, or temporary benefit. They exist during good times but disappear when life becomes difficult. Loneliness exposes these shallow connections and forces people to recognize who truly cares about them beyond surface level interaction. This realization can be painful at first. During lonely seasons, many people notice that some individuals only reach out when they need something, when it benefits them, or when life is exciting. But when emotional struggles appear, silence often follows. The people who once seemed close suddenly become distant. This experience hurts deeply because it reveals uncomfortable truths about certain relationships. However, that pain also creates wisdom. Loneliness teaches people to stop chasing approval from everyone around them. Before isolation, many individuals spend years trying to fit in, impress others, or gain acceptance from people who never truly appreciated them. They become emotionally exhausted trying to maintain connections that lack authenticity. But lonely seasons shift priorities. People begin realizing that genuine relationships matter far more than temporary attention or popularity. This understanding changes the way they value human connection. Instead of seeking quantity, they begin seeking quality. A single loyal, supportive, and honest relationship becomes more valuable than dozens of shallow interactions. Loneliness teaches people to appreciate those who remain present during difficult times, not just during moments of success or happiness. Another important lesson loneliness teaches is emotional discernment. After experiencing disappointment or emotional distance, people become more aware of unhealthy relationship patterns. They start noticing who drains their energy, who manipulates their emotions, and who only appears when convenient. This awareness helps them develop stronger boundaries and healthier standards for future relationships. Loneliness also creates empathy and emotional depth. People who have experienced isolation often become more compassionate toward others because they understand emotional pain personally. They become more attentive listeners, more understanding friends, and more supportive companions. Their own struggles teach them how meaningful genuine care can be. As a result, they begin building deeper and more authentic relationships themselves. There is also a powerful shift that happens when people learn how to be alone without hating themselves. Desperation for connection often causes individuals to tolerate toxic relationships simply because they fear loneliness. They stay connected to people who disrespect them, ignore them, or constantly hurt them because being alone feels more frightening than being mistreated. But loneliness can eventually teach self-respect. Once people learn how to survive emotionally on their own, they become less willing to accept unhealthy treatment just to avoid isolation. This growth leads to healthier relationships in the future because connections are no longer built from desperation. Instead, they are built from mutual respect, honesty, and emotional maturity. People begin choosing relationships that add peace, encouragement, and growth to their lives rather than chaos and insecurity. Lonely seasons also help individuals appreciate meaningful moments more deeply. Someone who has experienced emotional emptiness often values genuine companionship in a stronger way. Small acts of kindness, honest conversations, loyalty, and emotional support begin to carry greater importance. They no longer take real connection for granted because they understand how painful emotional isolation can feel. In many ways, loneliness refines the heart. It removes illusions about relationships and reveals what true connection actually looks like. It teaches that real love is not measured by constant attention, social status, or popularity. Genuine connection is found in people who remain present during difficult seasons, who listen without judgment, who support growth, and who bring peace instead of confusion. Loneliness can feel like evidence that nobody cares, but sometimes it is actually teaching people how to recognize the relationships that truly matter. It helps separate temporary connections from meaningful ones. It teaches emotional wisdom, self-respect, and appreciation for authenticity. The pain of isolation may hurt deeply, but it can also prepare people to build stronger, healthier, and more genuine relationships in the future. One of the most dangerous lies loneliness tells people is that it will last forever. When someone has been isolated for a long time, it becomes easy to believe that nothing will ever change. The silence feels permanent, the emptiness feels endless, and hope slowly begins to fade. Days blend together, and the future can start looking dark and uncertain. But the truth is that loneliness is a season, not a life sentence. No emotion lasts forever, and no painful chapter remains unchanged forever. Human life constantly moves through different seasons. There are moments of joy, moments of struggle, moments of connection, and moments of isolation. Painful periods often feel permanent because emotions have a way of distorting perspective. When someone is hurting deeply, they struggle to imagine happiness returning again. But throughout life, circumstances change, people change, opportunity appear, and healing slowly takes place even when it cannot yet be seen. Many people who once felt completely alone eventually look back and realize that their lonely season was temporary. At the time, they believed nobody understood them and nothing good would come from their pain. Yet later, they discovered that those difficult moments were shaping them emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. The loneliness that once felt unbearable became part of the process that strengthened their character and redirected their life. One reason loneliness feels permanent is because emotional pain affects the way people think. When individuals are isolated, negative thoughts often grow louder. Doubt, insecurity, fear, and hopelessness begin repeating themselves constantly. The mind starts convincing them that they will always feel disconnected, unloved, or forgotten. But emotions are not always accurate reflections of reality. Pain speaks loudly in the present moment, but the future still has the power to change completely. Healing rarely happens overnight. Growth is often slow, quiet, and difficult to notice while it is happening. Some days may still feel heavy, and progress may seem invisible, but every difficult season eventually moves forward. Just as storms do not last forever, emotional pain also changes with time, experience, and healing. People who continue moving forward, even slowly, often discover strength and peace they once thought were impossible. Loneliness also teaches patience. Modern society encourages instant results, instant happiness, and constant stimulation. Because of this, many people become discouraged when healing takes time. They want immediate relief from pain and immediate answers about their future. But some lessons can only be learned through endurance. Certain forms of growth happen gradually, through persistence during uncertain moments. During lonely seasons, people often underestimate how much they are changing internally. Even while feeling broken, they may be developing resilience, wisdom, emotional awareness, discipline, and strength. These qualities do not appear suddenly. They are built quietly over time through struggle and perseverance. Later in life, individuals often realize that the pain they survived prepared them for responsibilities, opportunities, and relationships they could not have handled before. There is also hope in understanding that loneliness does not define personal worth. Many people begin believing their isolation means they are unwanted, forgotten, or unimportant. But circumstances are not always reflections of value. Sometimes life becomes quiet simply because growth is taking place beneath the surface. A seed buried underground may appear invisible for a season, yet important development is happening where nobody can see it. In the same way, lonely periods may be preparing someone for a stronger future, even when they cannot yet understand the purpose behind the process. Another important truth is that connection often returns unexpectedly. New friendships, healthier relationships, opportunities, and supportive people can enter life in ways nobody predicted. Many individuals meet the right people only after walking away from the wrong environments. Some discover purpose after losing direction completely. Others find confidence after surviving seasons where they once felt emotionally shattered. Life has a way of changing when people continue moving forward instead of surrendering to hopelessness. Loneliness can also create appreciation for future happiness. People who have experienced emotional darkness often value peace and genuine connection more deeply later in life. They stop taking simple moments for granted because they understand what it feels like to go without them. Their painful experiences give them perspective, gratitude, and emotional depth that comfort alone could never provide. Although loneliness may feel endless right now, it is important to remember that seasons always change. The silence you are experiencing today may eventually become the story of how you discovered your strength, rebuilt your identity, and found your purpose. One day you may look back and realize that the chapter you once wanted to escape was actually preparing you for the person you were becoming. Pain changes, circumstances change, life changes. And no matter how heavy loneliness feels today, it does not have the authority to decide your entire future. Your loneliness is not proof that you are unwanted. It may be proof that you are growing. Some chapters of life require solitude because transformation needs space. Use this season to heal, learn, grow, and reconnect with yourself. The world often fears silence, but sometimes silence is where destiny speaks the loudest. Stay patient, stay hopeful. Your loneliness has purpose.